And we'll go back to my screen and we'll start to talk about phase one, which is fellowship establishment. Okay. All right. Fellowship establishment. This is really what makes everything go. If we don't have fellowship, if we don't have partnership, if we don't have relationship, we don't have anything. We don't have a regenerative economy. So let's talk about what I have experienced so far about what makes an effective fellowship. So what is a fellowship? A fellowship is really just a group of people, 3 to 5 people who meet regularly to talk about solving a problem, creating something, or just being there for each other, holding a space for each other to explore individual concerns. That's all a fellowship is 3 to 5 people. It can be more, it can be less, it can be 2 people. I have found 3 to 5 is really effective. In my experience, and my experience is certainly no reflection on anyone else's, I don't expect it to be, but in my experience, 3 people kind of make a pretty good therapy session. You might be able to express a lot, but not a lot gets done. And that's fine. Sometimes that's all you need a fellowship for. When you get to 5 people, oftentimes one person doesn't feel heard. One person kind of wants to do their own thing. They want to break out and maybe form their own fellowship around a different topic or a different focus. They might have a hard time feeling heard in the sense that they can commit to a regular schedule. But 4 seems to be the magic number in my experience. 4, you can explore a lot of content, you can find a lot of answers, and you can move forward. You can start to make productive goals and move forward. I would love to hear what your experiences have been. Is 4 the magic number for you, or is a different number the magic number for you? So that's something that I've learned, and that's really all a fellowship is. Success, as far as establishing a regenerative economy, and by starting that 2x2 trend, that starts to happen when every member both participates in a fellowship and initiates a fellowship. So let me give an example here. So when I do this presentation again, I will be presenting it to my core fellowship for the Virtual Services Time Bank. Because I'm initiating the Time Bank, that is a group that I have initiated. And we've been consistently meeting now for about 6 or 7 months. A fellowship that I participate in, there's a few of them. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Marta Reese and the Collaborative Innovation Institute. They've met the last couple months, and usually there's a good 20 people involved there, but I kind of consider that a fellowship because we do have meaningful conversations. So I kind of consider that a fellowship as well, but that's one that I participate in. So I feel like there's this nice balance going on by participating and initiating. So the next step there is fellowship hours lead to service hours. So what that means is you can increase the amount of hours that you contribute to the Time Bank, and you can receive more hours from the Time Bank through your fellowships. So I'll give 3 examples, from the 3 other members of the core fellowship. I'll show you this picture here for a moment. So this is the 4 of us. This is Marta, there's myself, there's Nefertiti, and Parmjit. I'm getting ahead of myself too, so I'm not going to stay on this page. But Marta and I talk every week. We talk for an hour every week, and I pay her for that hour, for consultation. We talk about collaboration. We talk about, the Time Bank. We talk about, how to personally move forward. So I pay her that hour, a service hour, for that consultation. Nefertiti and I are both founding members of a production company called Not On My Watch Productions. We have produced a play about suicide and bullying. We have taken it on tour with different mental health associations in New Jersey. So for all of our rehearsal time, all of the prep time, all of our meeting time, I pay Nefertiti out of my personal hours, for kind of facilitating, for contributing to that effort. And Parmjit, who is an outstanding writer, who has a lot of very, very poignant, insightful observations about women in transition, or about people in transition. She's she lives in the UK, Indian heritage, and I took the time. I can say this. I just took the time 2 days ago to read one of her blogs about her life transition. I really reflected on that a lot. I shared that blog with the rest of the fellowship as well, and asked to maybe consider maybe creating a fellowship about women in transition, women, in different cultures, who are or finding it a challenge to integrate into a different culture. And I took about an hour to really read and reflect and respond to that. So I paid her a service hour for doing that work, Um, so fellowship hours lead to service hours, and it deepens the relationships. And a successful fellowship will meet for over 20 hours over the course of a year or so. Our core fellowship meets twice a month for an hour and a half. So I think we've already met that standard. And then you can kind of reevaluate to say, okay, are we still mutually benefiting from this? Are we all moving forward personally? And it's okay if a fellowship disbands and explores a new topic, or creates what I call a niche-based fellowship. So yeah, that's successful regardless of the outcome, because that is 20 hours. And when you think there's 4 people in our fellowship, that's 80 hours taken out of the extractive economy and put into the regenerative economy. So that's why I consider that a success. And that's something we can measure. And that's something we can start to redirect financial resources toward. So that's what I've learned about a fellowship so far. And that's some of the things that I would recommend thinking about. Who are 2, 3, or 4 people that you want to deepen the relationship with? That's the start of the fellowship. What's the topic that you might want to explore? Is there a problem that you're looking to solve together? Is there a work of art or something you want to create, or an experience you want to create with these people? These are the questions that can help start you thinking in terms of forming a fellowship and building the regenerative economy. All right, so I'm going to take a moment and breathe. So the next one is there are 3 types of fellowship that I have discovered that will help the regenerative economy grow. And again, this is very much in its infancy, and part of it is just kind of putting this out there, letting you think about it and explore it as well. But one is a fellowship about fellowship, where people come together and they say, you know what, we want to make a difference. We want to see changes. We want to get to know each other. We want to get to know ourselves better. But how do we start? And really, it's just about showing up. It's just about showing up and talking about, what do you have to say that you feel has not been heard? What are you observing that you think other people are not seeing? So that's a fellowship about a fellowship, is just people coming together. They're not quite sure what's going on yet, but you find your way together. And it's supposed to be uncomfortable at first. It's supposed to be confusing at first, but you find your own individual answers by consistently showing up. And I'll share a few things that I've learned that really do help in creating a fellowship about fellowship. But that's where you get your focus, those kinds of fellowships. The second one is a regional focused fellowship. And that's where people from a specific city, state, country, come together and they have a fellowship about a fellowship, really. I mean, a regional fellowship is really just focused on a community, focused on, the geographical location of a community. I'll use in a moment an example of what I'm doing, the work I'm doing in the Phoenixville community, Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. But it's really just about starting the conversation, deepening the conversation about how a community or a specific region can contribute, to the macrocosm, to the global community. Niche-based fellowships is where a small group of people come together to focus on a specific problem to solve or a specific experience to create. So yeah, and that is going to be different for every person. My friend Nefertiti down on the lower right-hand side here, she and I had a conversation recently where she said when she thinks of me, she thinks of cultural diversity. So that might be a specific niche to explore about, how do we encourage cultural diversity within our time bank? When she says she thinks of MARTA over here, she thinks of collaborative innovation. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about collaborative innovation as well in the next slide. That is how businesses come together, initiatives come together and start to put aside differences and really find our similarities. So yeah, let's go to that next slide. So fellowship's about fellowship. I'm going to make a mental note here or two that I would highly encourage you to check out the Collaborative Innovation Institute site. That's collaborativeinnovationinstitute.org. Again, Marta Rees is the one of the founding board members there. But to move the regenerative economy along requires participation and then each member to initiate. And whatever that might look like for you might be different, how you initiate. But one of the things we found that I think is starting to build momentum is we rotate facilitators for our fellowships. So 1 week, I'll be in charge of facilitating. I'll come with some content, or I'll come with a general agenda in mind, and I'll kind of facilitate the conversation. The next week, Marta will, and next week, Nefertiti will, and then Parmjit will, and then I will again. So we rotate in and out based on what the facilitator would like to explore and focus on. And we do have a recorded conversation on the Road Counselor blog where Marta talked about the 6 principles of collaborative innovation. And for me, this was a great topic in establishing a fellowship about a fellowship. So as a participant, both in my own core fellowship with the Collaborative Innovation Institute and with other groups that I've been active in as a participant, I get to practice generous listening. Some of the questions you might ask yourself is, what do you want to learn more about? You can practice generous listening there. You can practice coachability. Are you coachable, when you're learning about something new? So you can think about, how have you been successfully coached in the past? How were you not successfully coached in the past? And what were some of the blocks there from somebody being able to coach you effectively? Asking yourself questions like that really kind of open up the floodgates about what to do next or how to do things differently. Curiosity is a big one as well, too. So, coming into something, with a curious spirit, really asking the deeper questions, both of yourself and of your other fellowship members, can really deepen the content. And there's no such thing as wasted time in a time bank. Because you can log and record all of that time regardless of the outcome, and that's how you succeed. So you can take the time to ask those deeper questions, and you really speed up the process along as you're doing deep dives into a topic, yourself, the communication between you and your fellowship. So these are the benefits I've received as a participant. I mean, I've received all 6 benefits, but those are very prevalent as a participant. When you initiate or when you facilitate, a fellowship, you can really develop the habit of committed speaking or action-oriented speaking. So right now for me, this is kind of like a clinic for committed speaking for me personally. I'm speaking to myself, or hopefully to someone else who's receiving this message. How you receive this message is up to you, but I'm doing a lot of committed speaking right now. Mutuality. So being on both ends is both speaker and listener, and getting comfortable being both. That's mutuality. That's energy awareness as well too. Energy awareness is a big one. I do a lot of work. I do a lot of work with emotional content. Understanding what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, how to choose a different emotion and move forward. A lot of my work is centered on that kind of content. Again, you have all access to that at the Road Counselor blog as well too. Yeah, so by being a facilitator, I really get to practice committed speaking, mutuality in asking questions, developing group activities for equal exchange dialogue, and checking in with how everybody feels. What's the energy like? So I'm the only one here speaking, and I feel good about this so far. I feel like it is a lot. I feel like I'm throwing a lot at you, and I want to make a conscious effort to slow down. And I'm going to go back to my original question: is how do I make this more fun and easier for myself? So the answer that's coming to me right now is to breathe, take some tea, and yeah, allow you to just have a moment to take this in. So the last point I will make as well is that fellowships about fellowships will naturally lead you to exploring niche fellowships. All right, so we're going to go into a little bit of information about establishing regional fellowships. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I just want to come in and check in with you personally. You. I don't know if I know you, but I'm very grateful that you're watching this and that you're taking the time to learn about a regenerative economy, to learn more about this time bank, to learn more about our core fellowship. So to make this more easy for me, I'm just going to ask you to please, think about, what's on your mind. Journal it out. Don't even think about it. Maybe it's an exploratory activity to just take a piece of paper or to type an email and just let your thoughts free flow out. What's coming out right now? Where are you at? Go ahead and pause this recording and take some time for you. I'm going to take some more tea and we'll get back to the presentation in a moment. Wow, this is a lot. This is a lot of stuff, isn't it? Yeah, so talking about fellowship. All right. So this is kind of looking ahead just a little bit. And from here on out, I don't expect the rest of this to really resonate, especially for a first-time viewer. But I want to put this out there for myself as far as helping me get centered on where we're going and how to grow with this. So regional fellowships is a focus that helps the regenerative economy to expand. So here's a slide here from the Phoenixville Time Bank, and I have their website up there, patimebank.org. I am the secretary and one of the board members of the Phoenixville Time Bank chapter. And I've done a lot of work with them exploring how to establish, regional conversations, regional fellowships. We just had a conversation about reuniting the country. How do we have the deeper conversations that's going to heal the polarity that we're experiencing politically, socially, especially during COVID right now? And there is a conversation right now that I did put up on the Rogue Counselor blog from that conversation with the Phoenixville Time Bank. We had about 21 people show up at that. And I asked everybody, what are your priorities? First of all, reuniting the country. What do you see as the problem? I mean, we all sense that there's something off, that there's something that we feel like that we can do. We feel like there's something more we can explore. And I asked every member, to chime in when they felt ready to say something. But what do you think is the problem? And what do you see your role as? For me, the problem is that we're really functioning at emotional, immature levels. I don't know how contrived, if that's by default or by design, but I do feel like there's a lot of room for emotional maturity. And a consumerist economy doesn't really allow for a lot of time to explore those emotional relationships, to explore your own emotions. So I feel that is, that might be at the root of the problem as I'm experiencing it. And my role is establishing this time bank where we can take the time to go deeper and establish those connections where we find our value. We kind of uncover what we're really feeling and why, and perhaps facilitate those conversations with people that we disagree with, that we strongly disagree with. And it's okay. You have my permission to start a regional fellowship about a fellowship. So, this could be like, I live in Norristown. I might want to start a Norristown fellowship. I live in Norristown, Pennsylvania. So anybody can join the fellowship. But if you want to start a fellowship about what's going on here in Norristown, and I admit I'm pretty naive about what's going on in my own town, I would certainly be open to that. So you can start a fellowship about a fellowship or a niche fellowship in any region. And that kind of helps us to understand, where this time bank is growing, because we don't have really a jurisdiction. We're a time bank that seeks to attract an international ownership, international membership. So so by establishing a fellowship in your region, it helps us to also understand where these ideas are starting to form a presence, where there are opportunities. Regional fellowships will explore potential niches. So out of that first conversation with the Phoenixville Time Bank, we're already exploring two topics. One is just about care. How do we show that we care about people? How do we give better care? What is care? So that's a conversation we're having with the Phoenixville Time Bank next month. With the Phoenixville Transition Town team, I started entering into a conversation where I learned a lot more about the difference between an extractive and a regenerative economy, how to identify, how energy and money and resources are being extracted, and how we can give back, ecologically, sustainability. How can we give back to the economy in a regenerative economy? So these are things I'm learning for the first time. So through the Transition Town organization in Phoenixville, we've started that conversation already, and we're going to deepen that conversation here in January and February, I think. So another key to success for a regional fellowship, participate with the local organizations, activist organizations, nonprofits. So as you can see, I'm using Time Bank, Transition Town. These are some of the groups that we've already started conversations with to deepen those conversations, and identify common concerns with individuals in the region. And we're starting to have that conversation in Phoenixville. What are the common concerns? Well, one thing that I can say specifically about Phoenixville, and this is going to be different for every region, but Phoenixville is a very progressive town, and there are a lot of nonprofits there. One thing that I've been hearing in our conversations is that how do we get past thinking that other nonprofits or thinking that other organizations are competition? And how do we work together? How do we have the conversations to kind of blend, blend intentions? So that's some of the things that I'm thinking about in terms of my own personal regional fellowship here. Okay, and then we'll just do a little exploring on niche fellowships. And again, a niche fellowship is really just focused, a specific focus now on solving a problem, creating an experience. So here are some of the things that I have discovered so far that really help move along a niche fellowship. One is, first of all, identify the topic, identify the problem. So even though our core fellowship has been a fellowship about a fellowship, and I'm going back now to the 4 members, myself, Parmjit, Nefertiti, and Marta, we're kind of becoming a niche fellowship just by looking at this 5-year plan. So the niche right now is, how do we take the first pragmatic, practical steps in creating a regenerative economy? So that's the topic of our niche right now. And that's why I'm doing this presentation right now. And one thing that I've helped to move that forward is to create SMART goals. And for those of you who aren't familiar with a SMART goal, it means specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based. So that's what the business plan is. Some of the feedback I've gotten from my core fellowship is that the business plan is very corporate. It does speak businessese a lot. And I did do that intentionally because I am reaching out to businesses, government organizations as well to take a look at what we're doing. This is the reward. There's really no risk, but this is the financial reward if you back us at this time. So the business plan is kind of like the establishment of the SMART goal for creating a regenerative economy as far as our efforts are concerned. And one of the things I want to say here as well too is that this is not the only way. There are thousands, literally thousands of organizations out there with great ideas that can work in concert together. So I'm going to state from my intention here is that my intention in establishing this time bank is to help all of those efforts come together and find the intersection so that we can all move forward faster. I think, there's 3 questions I like to ask in a niche fellowship. After you establish the SMART goal, and the SMART goal for this year is to establish 32 core fellowship members and 600 hours in the time bank. And I gave you the 5-year plan, which is trillions. But so you create the mutuality through these 3 questions. What do you have to share about the topic, which may not be understood? So if I'm sitting here, with other leaders of economic development or social movement or anything like that, I would say what I would have to share that I've been observing that I don't think is understood right now is that because our technology has become so advanced, everybody has something to say and they're in a hurry to say it and they're competing with each other to say it. There's a high supply of people with ideas, but nobody's listening. And that's what fellowship addresses. We want to establish the safe spaces, where we can compare notes, we can, strategize and collaborate together. So that's why I like to always renew my commitment to the Collaborative Innovation Institute, because they're really bringing a lot of people together from tech, from academia, from the government, from all of these initiatives, and come back to how do we stop competing with our ideas and find the intersections between them. So that's what I feel is not quite understood yet. And those are the conversations that I'm looking forward to having more of as I continue my involvement with this Time Bank and with the Collaborative Innovation Institute. How do I envision each member supporting the SMART goal? Well, yeah, so I'm going to be doing this presentation again with my core fellowship, and then I will kind of express that when we actually talk to each individual member. But for instance, the Collaborative Innovation Institute with Marta, she's already really advocating for this effort, and that's how I envision that support, and that's what she's doing. With Nefertiti, we have another two members in our production company, and she is helping the other members kind of understand how the software works a little bit, helping them explore that. So that in a sense is already a fellowship, and she's moving that forward. And Parmjit is giving great feedback, because she does interact with a lot of different organizations. And I think she is exploring how to make that communication a little bit more accessible. So she is making those connections, and she's making the very good feedback. She's really, really trying to make this accessible, because the way I'm presenting it, if you're following along right now and you're kind of with me, that's great, because I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But Parmjit is really asks the tough questions. How does this put food on a starving family's table right away? So yeah, it makes it accessible she's making it accessible to different cultures, and that's how each member is kind of contributing to this effort. What is the next step? What can I do in the next 24 hours or less to create forward movement? I can make this public. I can make this recording public right now. So I have not been very successful in the past with sharing content like this, and I think I'm starting to understand why. But if you're still with me and you understand this, please feel free to answer the questions that I'm throwing out throughout this, and let's start a dialogue. Let's start a dialogue if this feels right to you. All right, I'm gonna take a little bit of a break.